This is the magicwordpodcast.com.
Hello, this is Scott Wells for the magicwordpodcast.com. Well, this week we are going to be talking with someone who is a specialist in the trade show field. We have talked with several people in the past, but this gentleman actually is one who trains other people, and he also produces shows in which he will book other magicians as performers or infotainers, as he calls them, at their particular trade show. So anyhow, he has done many workshops. He's been at Magic Live, and he was someone who got on my radar many years ago when he had produced the book called Hustle Hustle. We're going to talk briefly about that. And I say briefly because I mention it and then he takes off. This is one of those podcasts where I say hello and goodbye. Pretty much it is a mini lecture, if you will, and a lot of good information that one thing leads to another. And I kind of hesitated to try to break his train of thoughts, but if you want to hear more, we can perhaps get back together with him at some later time. One of the great things also that Joel Bauer has offered us here is in this podcast, is he kept saying that I have these kinds of products that are available and that I will send them to you so that way they'll be available to download for free by your listeners. So if you go to themagicwordpodcast.com, go to our website, for this particular week's blog, you will see a variety of different links there that will take you to where you can actually download and enjoy these things, like his book Hustle Hustle, which is not available anymore, but he makes it available, and also the video that he did of his lecture at Magic Live, since he doesn't plan to do that much anymore, or rather at all in the future as well. Anyhow, very fascinating gentleman, someone who is, if ever there was an alpha dog, someone with an A personality, Joel Bauer is the guy. And if you've not seen him at work, he really is something amazing, in which he draws just huge crowds all the time at his trade show booths. Well, I'm going to kind of step out of the way. This is the most I probably talk during this whole particular episode, so I want you to enjoy everything that he has to say. So please welcome my guest here this week, Mr. Joel Bauer, here on The Magic Word. Today, I am pleased to have a guest who is someone that many of you have heard of, may have seen someplace. Perhaps you may have seen him like at a trade show, may even have his book from way back when. It's interesting right now because there are so many master classes that are out on the internet and ways that you can supposedly become a new master of whatever that you want, or whether it's going to be, whether it's in magic or in singing or in acting and so many other kinds of things, and people who have experiences that can share. And this is someone who has a master class then of his own and teaches workshops and has been very successful over the years, particularly as a trade show magician and as a motivator. And I kind of hate to say motivational speeches because that's kind of an outdated term basically, but he is somebody I think it's important that if you have not heard before, that you will enjoy here. I had first I guess got him on my radar whenever I bought his book Hustle Hustle many years ago, and it was a great book. It was actually a workbook, and something that I really would recommend. And I think if you have an opportunity, you should seek it out and get that. So anyhow, that being said, please welcome my guest here today, Mr. Joel Bauer. Hey there, Joel.
First of all, they will not buy the book. I will send you the link to gift to anyone you choose to give it to.
That is fantastic. Thank you. Okay, so everyone who's listening, how about that? A free gift right off the start.
Yeah, no, meaning this is the book I wrote at 17.
Yep.
This was one of 5 different editions. This is the only copy I have in my possession. Mm-hmm. We'll give them the electronic link. If I had to rebuild what became a $2 million plus year business every year, and the only reason, this isn't braggadocio, the only reason I was able to make that kind of money wasn't bar mitzvahs, quinceañeras. It wasn't doing private parties. It was doing trade shows. Mm-hmm. Because they had an APB, an always present budget. I did absolutely no marketing. I based everything and all of my success on this little book, which I will also gift you to select, because I tried to buy the rights to this And the family, after Paul Diamond died, did not give me a response. Yeah, this is only 12 pages, and these 12 pages gave me a blueprint that allowed me to book in 6 areas cold without spending any money whatsoever. I'm talking zero. So anyone who is struggling out there financially and wants to take the magic and understand the business side of it, how to apply it, there's a lot they'll be able to take away from this today that'll be tangible, visceral, palpable, and profitable, because the techniques that worked 20 years ago, 30 years ago, 40 years ago work just as well today. And I have trained trade show infotainers, edutainers that are working right now. They're using the techniques. The only reason I no longer do it is because I was able to take everything I learned and shift it to corporate America. I got tired of the tricks. We don't cut.
Hold on for just a minute. Go back just a second to talking about It Takes Guts, Damn It, because for those unfamiliar with the book, just briefly, and I want to see if you had actually followed that to begin with. As I recall, his process, Paul's process was, if you don't have a trade show booked, you walk into a trade show and just start performing in front of a booth, and then start attracting a crowd, and then say, would you like for me to stay? And if so, it's going to cost X dollars. And if not, move on to the next booth. And kind of, I mean, that certainly takes guts, damn it. And
I think you're okay. You're really accurate, except Paul Diamond didn't do trade shows. He taught that exact process to walk into a hotel,
okay,
look on the board, and there's actual diagrams and misspellings and typos. And, he wrote this on a little typewriter. And there's some cute little pictures here, but essentially you would see what companies were there, and you would walk in and just start performing in your tuxedo or your suit.
Right.
And you would do your sponge balls, card and wallet, ring flight, whatever, in 4 corners of the room. And so it was north, east, west, south. You did 4 little demos, and then you had people that would follow you, because those who love magic tend to hang on. And if you had a pretty good repertoire, enough material, you would then say to them, who's in charge here? Who booked this event? And they would take you to the director of sales, or whatever man or woman, he, she, they, them, happened to book the event. And then you would simply say to them, I stopped by to do what I do, which is to perform something that completely ties into the messaging behind the company. I saw that you were having this affair. I already finished another gig. Now, that's not a lie, because you probably finished another gig at some point in your life, right? And you're essentially, and you say, if you would like me to remain here, your people seem thoroughly fascinated. This is a one-sheet, simple agreement, just letting you know that you can pay me 30, 60, 90, whatever's convenient. And they don't want to let you go. I never failed. NEVER. Because the event's already going on, they have no other form of infotainment, edutainment, infotrainment. They have no other way. And you have to become masterful at tying in a fundamental message.
And you think that's still valid today, as far as entering a situation like that into a showroom or into a hotel room?
I don't think, I know. The worst case scenario, Scott, the worst case scenario is that they would ask you to leave. Did it ever happen to me? It almost happened to me, but I had just had the agreement signed by a company at Moscone Center as the only time in 96 cold calls at trade show actual floors that I almost got caught. Like the manager probably had seen me before and knew that I didn't have the proper badge or whatever. And he came over, and I already had the contract signed. And I said, I represent this company. This is the president of sales, and they're securing a badge for me. He said, well, what badge did you have to get in here? I said, I just walked in. I didn't show him anything. And he couldn't kick me out at that point, because now I was engaged by the company. Otherwise, it never happened. Now, if you don't have big balls, you don't have nerve, then this is not for you. I'm talking to your audience here, obviously, but let me just say something here. It takes nerve to wake up in the morning and get out of bed. And it takes nerve to go and make grocery money, insurance for your car, try and keep a domicile over the heads of your children, your wife, your life. It takes nerve and big balls just to live life. So I don't see, and I'd like to get them past this fear mode. I don't see why they wouldn't do this. You don't require a website. You don't need a business card. You don't need a brochure. You don't have to have a meeting with the CTO, the CFO, the founder of the company, EIO. All the animals on the farm don't have to confirm anything. So I went from doing this in the private sector at hotels, and sometimes convention centers would be having hospitality suites. I crashed everything, but I said to myself, and my mother had taken me to trade shows. And by the way, stop me anytime you like, because
Well, I was just about to say that I tried that once and it didn't work for me, and perhaps it's a matter of numbers, and I should have done it more often. And I say that because when I'd gone into a trade show, I did not have a badge, but I was able to go past security, and I was talking with different people at the booth, and I got an email though because someone apparently had given the organizer my card, and they contacted me and said, "How did you get in?" And I said, I just came in, and they said, "Well, you owe us money for attending our convention and our showroom, and since you didn't register." And I said, "Well, would you like to see me, next year? Would you, like to me to perform?" "No, I want nothing to do with you or magic. I want you, to never contact." I mean, they were very adamant about this whole thing, but I had not, in the meantime, during that period I was there, although I'd made good contacts, no one was signing me up to saying, "Hey, we want you right now to finish out the rest of this
how
conference."
about how about I address failure? I failed at the Western Shoe Show. I remember I told you I never failed crashing the hotels. I failed twice out of 96 contracts that were signed.
hmm
I failed twice. WSA, Western Shoe Show, Western Shoe Association, I believe, WSA. And then I failed at MAGIC, Men's Apparel Garment, I believe, Industry Convention.
That's a big thing in Las Vegas, I think. Is it a big
Correct.
convention
So
there? Yeah.
I failed twice. Let me tell you why I failed. I didn't fail because I wasn't competent. I didn't fail because I wasn't aggressive. And I was always nervous and I was always scared. Okay, so I want everyone to hear me on this. I'm being completely transparent here. I'm not some tough guy. Okay, I don't have some, linoleum deflective exterior here. I'm not bulletproof. I was scared always that I wouldn't get booked. I was sweating. I was nervous. I would park. Let me give you a scenario, and then I'll talk about the failures and then the successes.
Yeah.
In Las Vegas, there was a little motel on the corner. My entire budget was $200, and that was a lot of money to me. And I'm 65, so I'm going back 35, years plus. Okay, a long time ago. And I said, I can afford to drive to Vegas, and a tank of gas at the time was maybe $25. I mean, it was different.
Right.
It was
Right.
different.
Of course.
And I would park in this motel, and they would charge me $10, which was a lot of money to park all day.
hmm
So all my gear, and I could then walk across the street to the Las Vegas Convention Center. So these are my targets. I live in LA. San Diego Convention Center, Moscone, San Francisco would be an 8-hour drive, 5.5 if you took the ugly route, and the Las Vegas Convention Center. Those were my targets. And I want everyone to write that down. You have to look at where you live, and you have to say, what's my budget? What's my risk?
hmm
I wanted to diminish risk. And we're really giving them the tactics here. And Scott, I'm also going to gift you a link to a lecture I did so that no matter what we cover here, you can give them the book. You can give them, now remember, they don't sell It Takes Guts, damn it, to my knowledge anymore. And they wouldn't let me buy the rights. I'm just sharing it with you. You do what you want with it. I find it unethical to give them something I didn't write. But at the same time, where are they going to get the information?
Right.
I wanted them to see my inspiration. So maybe you just want to take some notes out of it or whatever. I leave that up to you.
Okay.
I have nothing to
Fair
do
enough.
with the magic community. I don't sell anything. I don't sell books. I don't sell my newspaper tear. I don't want any money from any magician. I trained a group of magicians years ago. It was called Retire in 5 to 8 Short Years as a Trade Show Infotainer. 50 magicians. I think there were 43 that bought. There were a total of 57, I think, conked out. And they paid, I believe, $5,000 per person. And I prepared for about 6 months to do this one time. I never did it again. That was it, one time. And John Stetson, I believe, was there, and David Stahl, and some very well-known.
Yeah, Anders, a friend of mine, Anders, also was there.
Oh, Anders Bollinger, and Anders is a mega success.
Yeah, he's a great guy.
And he'll tell you, you could tell me if I'm wrong, he'll tell you that was the catalyst.
He did. He told me that in a podcast we already did. You can go back and listen to that one earlier, and he was saying, yeah, Joel helped me tremendously.
Last time I saw him, I took him to dinner at Magic Live, the only time I've gone there in many
I remember when
years.
you lectured at Magic Live.
Okay, that lecture I'm going to give you. And that lecture is like a blueprint of all the proof and the contracts and everything they need to do. It's real simple. It's about an hour lecture. And we had standing room. They were leaning on the walls at that lecture. I didn't think it would be that popular.
You were standing room only. I remember that.
I did 4 of them. And I really tipped my hat. Didn't get paid to do it. I didn't take anything from Stan. I said, Stan, this is my way of passing it forward. Magic has been very good to me. But any of you out there that think that this is some kind of fraternity, IBM, SAM, Academy of Magical Arts and Sciences, the Inner Circle, any of you that think this is not a fraternity, this has to become your business. That doesn't mean you don't care about other performers. Max Maven, the last time I saw him before he died, walked up to me in the parlor of Prestidigitation the last time about 6 years ago when I performed at the castle. I donated the money to the juniors. I wasn't there for the money. And he walked up to me and he gave me the greatest compliment I've ever received. He put his hand in my hand. I was at the door saying goodbye after the parlor show. And he said, I thoroughly enjoyed that. And I have no notes. Now, if you knew Max, you knew that this was a compliment.
Wow.
It's all I needed to know, because that man, he cared about one thing. Does the performer care about connecting with the audience? Does the performer care about the structure, the routine, the logic, the narrative? He wanted performers to care and to connect with their audience. He was a beautiful man, and it was very hard on me. It was hard on Penn and Teller. It was hard on a lot of us when we lost him and when we lost Johnny Thompson. We've lost some of the greats. The reason I wanted to do this with you here today is I want magicians to know, performers to know, that they can do mentalism, that they can do a combination of mentalism and magic in trade show booths, change their identity to that of the infotainer. They are educating. They are educating people that are convening in trade show rooms all over the world. Anders will tell you, Mr. Steele will tell you, another one that I trained, David Stahl, who uses my material with my permission to this day. And David Stahl is about as good as they get. Anders is about as good as they get. These guys are cutting edge, okay? There are a lot of people that don't like me, but if they approach me on the trade show floor, I was very kind. I was always open. And I want to relate something to you. Harrison Carroll came up to me one day and he was upset with me. And I was in the South Hall, Las Vegas Convention Center. He was working in the other hall. He was doing close-up podium style with a 45-degree angle mirror.
Okay.
He had maybe a group of 25, 30, 40, whatever. I wasn't watching. I just know that I know his group sizes. I know what he does. And he waited till the end of my set. I stepped down off my micro stage. And he came up to me and he said, I'm very upset with you. And this is between shows. I said to him, tell me more. He said, you evidently said something really negative about me, that my crowd sizes were very small. And I said to him, I'm very sorry. That is completely, and I had a tear. I was tearing up. Because I was wrong. I shouldn't have said anything. We shouldn't be comparing styles or approaches.
Right.
I was known for crowd size of 80 to 200, 300 people. I was known as someone who would congeal the artery like a heart attack where you couldn't move. And that was my style. And I developed a personality that was bigger than life because no other personality on the trade show floor worked. And when I went to England, I had a really hard time because I had to change the personality style. But in the U.S., continental contiguous United States, that bigger than life, kind of preachy, intense, hardcore trade show style, in your face, pitchman, fast, big, not big equipment, no, but big.
Right.
And it was different than his. And I said, would you accept my apology, which is entirely sincere? I was out of place. It's completely uncalled for. And I profoundly regret having said anything that could be perceived as negative concerning you, because you've always been very kind to me. And that's purely ego nonsense, and my ego's not my amigo. And we shook hands, and he has discussed my style in a he puts out, I believe you can invest in his system for booking trade shows, which he still sells, and he uses clips, comments about me and the style. So here's what I want people to hear. You can have an entirely different personality and still make it work. You can be scared and insecure and still make it work. I knew that I had to feed my kids, and we had another child on the way, and then another child on the way, and then another child on the way. And I had a huge mortgage. And I remember that when I first started doing the trade shows hardcore, I went out there out of desperation. And I asked a friend of mine, Dale Penn, for a job in car sales because I couldn't pay my mortgage that month. I had run out of all the money I made on the cruise ships. I was on the ships at 13 and a half. I saved a lot of money. But when I got married, I wanted to buy my wife a big house. So I bit the bullet and I overextended for the first time in my life because I was always a saver. And we reached the point where it was just like bar mitzvahs, weddings, quinceañeras. That wasn't doing it. That wasn't going to take care of the kids and the education and living in LA, et cetera. So I remember walking down the street and I asked my friend for a job in car sales. He worked for Jim Best Nissan. We had both been on different cruise ships for Carnival, both mentalists. He was a dove worker. He was on the cover of Boy's Life. Dale Penn, Penn, closest man. He's my best man at my wedding. And he said to me, I'm not going to give you a job. I can. I want you to hang in there another 6 months. And I want you to take your skills because I gave up on my dream. I'm not going to let you give up on yours. I'm not going to let you. He says, you'd be very good in car sales. You'll make maybe $500,000 a year as a general manager. And that's it. That'll be your friggin' life. That's where the ceiling is. And you're never going to do anything else. And I'm not going to bury you like that. Give it another 6 months. Best thing he could have done for me. That's when I went to Moscone, cold called, stay with a friend for free. His name was David Jones. He was the head of the Environmental Protection Agency. He was chief counsel, friend of my mom's. He let me stay in his home, drove to Moscone, and I failed. For 3 days, I went booth to booth, snuck in, got a badge. You just stand in the badge line, and people aren't paying attention. They don't, even now, even with all the compliancy issues that happened with the pandemic. If you stand in the line, they're going to call off someone's name, and someone's not going to walk up. So I would walk up and just grab someone else's badge, knowing they could get another.
Sure.
I would hold the badge here on my lapel with my finger, and I'd walk past security. And as I walked in the room, I would immediately throw the badge in the garbage, just like a pickpocket. I would pass the item. You pass the tip because I don't want to get nailed with it. Now I'm in the room. Now it's up to me to do demos. And instead of having a meeting about what you're going to do, I would just start performing like Paul Diamond had taught me in this little 12-page book that made me tens of millions of dollars. And I'm not saying this as braggadocio. I'm saying to magicians here, the only reason I'm on this podcast is I don't want you to give up on your dream. You could make one hell of a living doing magic. So there's a big question that comes up here now. Why isn't Joel performing magic now? Well, I still do corporate. I don't advertise. There's no website. And I make a fortune because now I just give them a price I pulled out of my ass because I don't really want to do it anymore. I this privately. I have chops. I'm a serious friggin' magician. Serious. Serious about mentalism, very well read. Encyclopedia. This isn't braggadocio. I spent my life in magic. Okay.
Sure.
But when I found out, and this is what happened when 9/11 hit, I'm working a trade show in Atlanta. I've got David Stahl on another stage working for my company because I would also send gigs to Tim Noonan, John Stetson, Brian Gillis, David Stahl. There were many magicians that I could rely on because I couldn't handle it. I would always book. I could only do so many shows at one time. So once I had the show, once I had the gig, I learned I could walk down the aisle and drag a VP of operations in or the founder of a company because all the decision makers are there. And I could get you got to see what's happening down. And I literally walk up to them with my badge on because I'm working for that company. And I would say, you got to see what's happening down here at this booth because you have no one in your booth. You built it. No one came. Follow me. And I'd break eye contact and they'd always follow me. And then I would drag them into my booth, step up on the stage, begin the show, and trap them. This is my technique. Okay. And then they would watch the show and they would see the tip that I built. Okay. The tip, the group, the first 7 rows. And then at the end of the show, and they couldn't move. They didn't want to move. They're like, oh my God. Yeah. And then I'd say, would you like me to put a performer who can do what I just did, an edutainer, infotainer, in your booth for free tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. when the show opens. Show opens at 9, but there's no crowd until 10. Let me put them there. I'll give you that for free. I'll train them. I just need your messaging 3 points, which I can get to if you want me to. And I can't think of a time where I failed because once they saw me deliver the goods, so this is what I want everyone to remember here. It's one thing to talk about what you may be able to do. It's another thing to have that company with an empty booth, whether it's IBM, Sesferco, Cargill, SanDisk, whatever, big companies, like that's how I booked IBM. Their booth was empty. They had like 4 people in it. And then they had like 16 salespeople. And I would put a crowd in their booth and I would this is how bold it got, Scott. This is really balls to the walls. I would walk in and you can ask David Stahl, you can ask Timmy Noonan, Brian Gillis is dead now, which is sad.
Yeah.
I still don't understand that, man. When I remember Brian like it's yesterday. And when someone dies, Max Maven, it's hard, man, because they're just not there.
We've gone off like on 15 different tangents and things that I wanted to kind of come back to.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. Let me just go there. Here was the ultimate technique. I got to the point where I would just get the badge, walk in the show. And out of all the techniques I developed, this was the best. I'd walk into the middle of the booth, big empty booth, big company that I know has a budget. APB, always present budget. They got money. They're spending a fortune and there's no one there. And I would take their chair and I'm dressed. Oh, by the way, I dress really well. My suits were, I always dressed well. And that is a key. Tie, perfect knot, single Windsor, clothing fit perfectly. Everything I bought was custom. I put all my money into the details. They can't see the house. They only see the porch. So I would make sure that the external, I was dressed better than the founders of the companies. And I had a beautiful wristwatch on. And I had a wedding ring on, which signifies a commitment to something other than self. I put the chair in the middle of their booth. I'd look at their signage. So I figured out the message before I'd walk in. And they wouldn't stop me because they just assumed that I must be a player of some kind, a guy dressed like that. I'd step up on the chair, put my little case, my little crocodile case, fake, but it looked good, between my legs. It had a little micro speaker, and I'd build the tip. Mm-hmm. And they wouldn't stop me because they assumed someone had hired me.
Right.
Suddenly, they went from an empty booth to a full booth. At the end of the show, I would deploy the 80, 90, 200 people that I sucked into the booth like a vacuum with techniques I can discuss here. And I would send them to the lead generation stations to capture the badge or go for a demo. And I would language it. And I would look at the wall in the booth because they always put up their most salient, pertinent, mission-critical points because the things that they want to put out there are on the wall at that point. Right. Their best printer, their highest resolution, their die symbol, whatever. So I was able to fake it instantly in real time build this tip, do about a 15 to 20 minute set. And then I'd step down and I'd put the chair back and I wouldn't say a word. And I would just turn off the PA, it was in my case. All my props, pack small, play big, whether I'm doing a poker demonstration or working with a fan and doing hypnosis or a blindfold or a piece of mentalism, pack small, play big. And I was bigger than life because that was the personality I developed. In my pocket, I had a series of folded singular contracts, and they were simple. It just, you're trusting them. I'm committing to Joel Bauer, X amount of shows, and I'll pay him 30, 60, 90. They'd fill it in. I would say to them, I was paid to be here. I paid myself, okay? I'm not lying.
Yeah.
I decide, right? I said, the person who hired me would like to remain anonymous. Me. They were embarrassed for you because they knew that you were here and you spent a fortune and you built it and no one came, like a field of dreams. And they wanted you to experience what it's like when you have the mechanism that's more important than the booth and more important than the product. If you have no sales at this show, you have no point in being here. I create crowds, convey messages, and collect leads, which become sales. I collect massive unqualified leads that become sales, and I can teach you the sort, sift, and separate as well. Now, here's the good news. Let me finish this and I'll be done. I apologize, but you'll get the whole, this is it. Here's the key. I said to them, this is the whole script. This is a script. If you don't acquire me for this show, because I'm already paid, I just made enough money to just go home and not work it. But I like working. It's fun for me. It's like breathing. It's nothing to it. I got it down to a science. As you saw, if you would like me to do this every hour on the hour, 5 times, I do 5 key shows during the key hours during the show. I will do it for half of the normal investment required. You sign this piece of paper, you keep a copy, you give me a copy, and you can pay me in 30, 60, 90 days, whatever works. You know you can't afford not to have people in this booth. Now, if you do not acquire me, no problem. It was a pleasure. And the person that paid me to be here, it was their pleasure to show you what you could do. You can go back to now what you can't do because you can't build a crowd without me. And I say, remember, if you don't acquire me, another company will on my way out. I will be here pulling in crowds either for you or your competition. I got hired like 96% of the time. When I failed at the Western Shoe Show and MAGIC, it's because those were order writing shows. They don't want entertainment. They're meeting with their existing clients. They're not trying to attract new clients. They're just showing up to write orders. I didn't know that. We are engineered for exhibition shows where you're looking for new blood.
Right. Right. So I remember talking with a lady who was in charge of trade shows on LinkedIn some years ago.
Yep.
And she said, I will never hire magicians and don't like them because their crowds are too big and they clog the aisleways.
Yep.
So when you're saying that you have extraordinarily large crowds,
huge.
I mean, I always think that's a good thing. But she was saying, well, it is a bad thing and that they prefer to kind of trickle in and whatever. It's like, okay. So what are your thoughts on that?
Scott, someone's going to be, your beard is too long. Your hair is too gray. Your tummy is too big. You're too thin. You're too black. You're too white. You're too Chinese. There's always going to be someone with a bad attitude. I did the numbers. I would go from booth to booth until I got booked. And I would say to my wife in Las Vegas, because she'd say, where are you going? I'm going to Vegas. She said, who are you working for? I said, I don't know. I'll let you know by noon. Otherwise, I'll be home tonight. My risk was $200. That was my total budget. Food, gas, parking. $200. That was it. And it made us a fortune. I went from $800 a day at that first show at Moscone, where I landed the account in the hallway for a company called QCI, Quarter Calling International, They hired me to do 2 months at 24 days a month at $800 a day, even though I asked for 4,000 a day and negotiated down. They made me, I made 60 grand approximately. Now we had money for the mortgage. Now I could breathe. And here's what I want you all to hear. When you're making the money, that's not when you lay back. That's when you double down. At every single show when I was working, I would go book David Stahl or Timmy Noonan or someone and I would give them, I'd say, what do you want to make per day? And they usually wanted to make $1,000. So I'd give them $1,100 and a $200 per diem, which meant all their expenses were covered. Right. All their expenses were covered. They could check into a hotel, they could pay their gas, they could pay their whatever. They made more than what they asked for. I was charging $10,000 a day because I am not an agent. I am a producer. Without me, no work. Now, Brian Gillis, even though I love the man, I couldn't work with him after the first show because he gave out his business cards. And my number one rule is you don't solicit.
No.
I booked you. I put your ass in that booth. Understand that. I'm making a lot of money on you. If you have a problem with that, don't work with me. You've got to be direct and you got to set up the boundaries and the rules. Now, here's what you need to hear. During the pandemic, companies pulled out. I paid in full every single commitment I made for David Stahl or anyone else that was working for me, and I had to tap into savings. I made sure no one got hurt. Whatever representations I committed them for, even though those companies didn't pay their bills and canceled their contracts, I paid the performers. They didn't understand you're running a business, and you have to make a lot of money if you're going to be responsible for the insurance and to make sure these guys are working. So I just want people to understand here, the reason I was able to do a couple $1 million a year is I was charging 10 grand minimum per day, plus the premiums, the rings and springs, the little block, the penny to dime. The rings and springs were our highest seller. I would charge $1.37 per envelope with their custom logo, instructions, and packaging in a Ziploc. I'd buy them through, I think it was Magic Ink at the time. I think it was Magic Ink.
Might have been Fun Ink.
Fun Ink.
Yeah, they did
right?
that.
And I was buying like a train, like a complete train compartment. I forgot what they're called, but they told me that no one bought more rings and springs. I would charge $1.37. I was paying about 23 cents.
Yeah.
So for every one I threw out, I was making $1, and I would throw out 3,000 to 5,000 per day. I would dump them on the audience, and they would just pick them up because the routine was so cool and tied in, and the company couldn't buy anything for $1.37 that was worth beans. So they thought it was and by the way, they retailed for $6. So they were buying it. The company was buying it for less than jobber cost.
Yeah.
All around, that made me huge. That paid for the house I'm in right here, which is a very valuable home in Los Angeles. It paid for all 3 of my homes in LA, just the premiums. And my wife was going nuts because she realized that I had no formal education. I had grown up on the cruise ships. I got C's, D's, and F's in school. My teachers thought I was going to be a failure, but I had found my way. And I owe everything to Magic in terms of the tool that I used. But then it was no longer about the magic. It was audience management. It was language. It was origami. Sometimes I would just paper fold and make a horse or a dragon, and I'd have 300 people at Javits Center in New York. Like one day I just started folding something during the break because I'm a hardcore origami guy, which is an allied art form.
It is. I like it. Yeah. It's
unbelievable. And I saw this huge crowd forming, and then of course I gave it to someone. And then another crowd formed. They wanted to see who, and it was like you could do anything that you could tie into the message. And then I learned, wait a minute, the magic here, I no longer have to hide behind the tricks. I no longer need to pretend that I'm reading minds. I can actually hold an audience, manage their focus, and get them to evaluate an opportunity. And those skills, you can't put a price on those skills. And so to this day now, I teach people online and offline how to monetize their life experience, just as I did, online, offline, and automate their systems. And soup to nuts, that's all I do. So right now, people invest a minimum of 19,000 and 55,000 and 250,000 at protege level. I have an entire ascension model of people that I train online, and you're only seeing me on one camera here, but I've got 6 cameras and I'm very advanced with OBS. So when the pandemic hit, we had to run our live events online. Now, I'm not here to discuss what I do now. I'm here to let them know that they can go out and do trade shows today, just like a David Stahl, who doesn't need to do them. He's got plenty of money. He's one of the most successful performers on the planet and someone I'm very close to. They can go out there just like a John Stetson, who I don't think is doing trade shows now, but he was exemplary on the floor. Timmy Noonan was amazing. They can go out there just like Anders. And Anders, I would have to say, that would be, David Stahl and Anders would be the model. Don't steal their material, but learn from their energy, their connection, and how they manage the crowd. So I'm going to send you, if I haven't already, a bunch of gifts for them, because I know that we're limited. We have another, like 10 minutes here, 50. Yeah. And then if you want to do a part 2, my friend, it would be my pleasure. I have no secondary agenda, which I told you. I have nothing to sell. I'm not going to give them links to invest in me or train with me. I am here strictly to try and motivate them to not give up on their dream of doing magic for a living and to make enough money where they can take care of their children, send them to decent schools, live well, and afford the escalating costs, which are not coming down no matter what they tell you about inflation. You know, I remember when gasoline was 11 cents a gallon in upstate Binghamton, New York at Hess, Hess. I'm 65. I remember buying a home for $7,000 in Miami when they couldn't give it away.
So are the classes you're teaching then right now and the workshops, you say they're online and then personal as well. I'm assuming that they are one-on-one type of thing, that you're not doing.
No, one on many. I do private consulting. I get $25,000 an hour, which people are not going to believe. They're going to say, oh, he's full of, no, that's what I get. Because I understand the marketing and the framing and my track record. So if someone let me ask you something. If you spoke to someone and there was something you wanted to do in your life and you've been talking about it for 25 or 30 years, but you didn't know how to put it together, but you knew that it was a distinct possibility, and you spoke to someone for 45 minutes to an hour, and they built the entire architecture for you. And the next thing you know, you were doing what it is you dreamed of doing, and you generated $1.5 million in the first year out of the gate. Would that have been worth $25,000 for the hour?
Sure. Even more than get your money back.
Yeah. And I do everything with the money back guarantee. So people come to me from all over the world in my groups. I have my Mentoring for Millions mentorship membership program. I have my Stack Mastery, Speak, Teach, and Close with predictive precision that teaches all 3 skills: speaking, teaching, closing, integrated, the whole closing structure. I give them all the templates, all the tools, $500,000 that I built in assets that are gifted to them. And I, on a bi-monthly basis, support them for a year with a money-back guarantee. If they fail and they make all the moves, I'll not only return all their money, I'll give them $1,000. And no one else does it. I will pay them if they fail. I have in my Ascension model, my Inner Circle, that's 3 live masterminds. And then I have my Protege program, which is 8 hours with me one day. That's $250,000. And they receive all the other levels. They are supported weekly. So I'm constantly online, but it's very manageable. So I do about 3 major events per week online, every other week. Plenty of time to vacation. All I need is a laptop and a piece of green material. Right now, you see the green over there. I am not in front of a green screen. This is what I use for podcast. And this is all set up. There's a reason for the statue. There's a reason for Brianna, my wife, Cherie, my daughter, Chanel, my son, Sterling, and me. There's a reason for the roses. All of this is by design. Everything is a set. The lighting in here. This is cinematic. You know, we figure it out. You crack the code, and suddenly you know exactly what to do. There's systems. It's just like a magic show. And
so you were able to pivot during COVID pretty easily, I would imagine.
Easily? No. It was the most lucrative year of my life.
Wow.
And the most painful. And the second COVID hit, none of us knew what was up or down. Well, I think Fauci and a few others knew, but none of us really knew what the hell was going on. In LA, everything was shut down. And I had over $2 million in events that I was already paid for. They're called master classes, presentation and closing certification master class, the PACM, PACCM. So I had people coming in from all over the world spending 30 grand to train with me in groups of 75 at the Marriott Warner Center. I had to cancel all the contracts. You weren't allowed. You were not allowed.
Right.
And how was I going to run an event with a mask? All right. So I went online. I didn't want my kids to see that I was scared, frightened. The hell am I going to do here? We're going to refund all the money. We could do that. But I mean, come on. I have to at least try and pivot. So I went to Best Buy because that was the only thing open. And I went to Kmart. I got some brackets and I put up TVs. And I created what is now a workstation here, which is really impressive looking. Looks like NASA. And I learned to use multiple cameras so I could stand and move and shift the attentions. Sure. And a lot of magicians during the pandemic learned how to use a Stream Deck and OBS, and a lot of them are masterful. Well, I got masterful with it, and it really became very simple. Once you crack the code, it's always easy to say, well, this is it. You omit everything else. But what I went through was hell. And I found out, I went online, I just helped people for free, didn't charge a dime. And then after I got done helping them, I had 700 people showing up daily for free. I didn't spend any money on advertising. It was all just organic because people were stuck at home and they were starting to look for people training them.
Sure.
And I could teach them how to monetize in 14 days or less. And I proved it. One person made 26,000 and another person randomly chosen made 17,000 cash. And they showed it. So everyone was living vicariously through the processes that I was teaching them with free programs. Then someone said, would you do it again? And I said, okay, give me $50. I pulled $50 because I wasn't really, it was like, if they have no skin in the game, they don't show up.
That's a good point.
And then they started buying all of my other licensing products. And my wife said, do you realize that from this hell we went through with the pandemic, we're closer to our family now. You don't have to leave the house. And we made more money this year. We made about $2.5 million during the pandemic, pre-tax. So a lot of that, obviously, if you don't offset it in tax plan. Right. And none of this is braggadocio. I want to inspire magicians to know they can make a living. And when I went to the celebration of Jason Randall, a man who changed my life, he's the one that showed me. I call it the Jason principle. He told me, Joel, I'm taking lessons from you. And I charge 10 grand for a show. How much do you charge for a show at that time? We're going decades. $500 for a bar mitzvah, right? I mean, you guys are still working for that. Some guys have never raised the price.
Unfortunate, but true.
And they're having a hard time. And he said to me, Joel, if you weren't good, really good as a performer, engaging the audience as a magician, if you weren't great, I wouldn't tell you this. Charge 10 times what you're charging. I said, you want me to charge $5 grand? He says, yeah. I said, but I'm going to lose a lot of business. People are used to paying 500. He says, do you think you'll lose 90%? You think you'll lose? I said,
good comment.
He says, now you'll work 1/10 of the time and you'll make the same money and you'll have more time for your life. Or you'll find out that you're wrong and you're worth more. Your perceived value is in the gutter. You don't perceive everything you've done to learn what you have. I need to elevate your perceived value. And that's what Jason taught me. When I went to the celebration of his life, and I'll send you the clip, I spoke for 9 minutes. I was very nervous. Whit Hayden was there and a bunch of other magicians. And I really didn't want to go because I'm a pretty insecure guy. I just know how to function. I'm a loner by nature. And maybe people need to hear that. I know how to function in groups, but I like being alone. Mm-hmm. I love being one-on-one. I'd love to be with you like for a meal, one person. Sure. I'm real good at that. And I'm good with the groups, but I'm not, I don't like it really. I do what I need to do to take care of my family. And Jason, I realized what a significant impact he had on my life by getting me to understand my perceived value. So I want magicians out there. This is not a motivational lecture here. I want them to know that they can absolutely do this. And I remember going to Vegas for Mindvention one year, and I didn't want any money, and I lectured, and Jeff McBride was there, And he walks up to me and he goes, there's not one magician here that understands what you're trying to do. You're trying to tell them that they don't need to change anything other than how they package and position themselves. You are not a magician. You are an infotainer.
Mm-hmm.
Their information, your unique blend of entertainment to suspend disbelief. When you change your title from magician to infotainer or a variation, Ned Rutledge gave me permission to use the term perceptionist. So I sold myself for years as a perceptionist, someone that uses their senses so effectively that they often manifest the illusion of a seventh sense or a sixth sense, a perception. Ned Rutledge was a very good man. Man, we've lost some people that are.
We have.
I'll never get over it.
Yeah.
They were so good to me, Billy McComb. But I think the greatest loss for our business is Johnny Thompson. And I just remember at the funeral when Penn and Teller got up, they were destroyed.
Yeah.
People don't realize what a gift he was to comedy, close-up sleight of hand. And Lance Burton will tell you there was no one better.
Right.
With dove manipulation and the correct misdirection and the timing. I just want you to know something. I know we're getting off here shortly. If you want to do another one, you just reach out. I'm going to give you enough tools for them for free. I don't want to thank you. I don't want a testimonial from them. I don't need to know that they succeeded. If I can do it, they can do it. This little insecure boy who's now 65 with 3 children and 3 grandchildren and a wife I've been with for 44 years. If I could make a life, and I want to leave you with this anecdote. It's the truth. We went to Binghamton, New York, where I was raised, and I called 3 of my teachers, Mr. Mon, Miss Shramick, and Mrs. Honeychuck, and they all showed up for dinner. And I got D's and F's, and my wife was there, and all we did was cry. We were in tears the whole night. They were so worried that I wouldn't make something of my life. They thought I'd be one of their failures. These were the 3 teachers that made a difference in my life. I knew they were committed to helping me. I just was terrible in school. I was always shuffling cards and falling asleep and, just a class clown and a moron. And when they saw that I had a wife and a life and children, we are all teachers, and magic is a teaching tool. It allows you to frame a message. And there are companies that will pay you a lot of money to frame a message. I just want to inspire them to watch the materials that you may be gifting them, and I will send them later today. I'll send you the Magic Live lecture, which I'm never doing again, and it has everything laid out, only an hour to power. I'll send you my book, and even though the book puts down the use of computers, because at that time computers didn't work very well.
True.
The techniques in this book, they could do today. It has all the forms, overcoming objections, the 6 areas I made money in, plus cruise ships and trade shows. I'm giving them enough tools here where they can really go out there and take what it is they have and monetize it and scale it to great degree.
Well, that sounds great. Been a lot of stuff that's been packed into this hour, and I thank you very much for everything that you've given us on there and answering a lot of my unanswered questions that you got to then as well. And as you say, maybe we can get together for a part 2 or something. And
if you would like, if you get a good response and you want me, this is my way of saying thank you to Johnny Thompson. Thank you to Jack Shannon. Thank you to Joe DeLion. Thank you to Greg Webb. All of the mentors. And when I was a child, my mother hired Greg Webb and Joe DeLion to teach me magic. I didn't know she was paying them. I thought they were just teaching me. No, they were getting paid. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
My mother, all the lessons I took from Tony Slidini, where I would go alone as a child. I was like 10 years old, and I would take the bus to the train and go into New York City, and it was $50 an hour. It was hell for me to come up with that kind of money. He never did a lesson for less than 3 hours with me. Tony Slidini was a gift. And one day he hit me really hard. He slapped my hand because he said, now show me the move that we had gone over like 300 times.
Right.
And I did it my way. And he said, what are you doing? I said, I was interpreting doing it my way. He says,
right.
First you do it the my way. if a mile away in the work, and then you find your own way. Do not reinvent. He wanted me to do it the way he knew would work.
Sure. Proven.
He was so passionate. And I remember carrying that forward. I'm telling magicians here, first you do it the my way. You can go out there and you can get booked. And if a my way in the work, and then you'll find your own way. This way actually works.
Good advice. Well, as we close, I always like to finish with asking my guests what their magic word is, of what your philosophy of life is. There are a lot of things that you said in there. What's important to you?
Feedback loop. So it's 2 words, but it's really 1 word. Constantly don't talk at the audience. Don't perform at them. You need to connect with them.
Mm-hmm.
You need to be in the moment. You need to look them in the eye. You need to be aware of their emotions. You need to know when you're losing them. You need to know how to reel them back in.
Right.
And it's this constant dance, feedback loop. I see a disconnect with the majority of performers. Even when I watch Penn and Teller with some of the great magicians in the world, feedback loop is the key.
Feedback loop.
Pay attention, constantly be in the loop with your audience, engaging them.
Right.
You must do magic that is visceral. Sometimes doing magic that you like, but they may not like it. Women don't particularly like cards, and magicians don't understand that.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're going to use a deck of cards, use a tarot deck. They're interested in that. Oh, yeah, it's totally different. And if you're going to do like a haunted pack, do a haunted tarot pack and tie it in and make it personal. I'm not telling them to be bizarre. I'm saying you've got to care about the male and female. They're different.
It's all bottom line sales, I think, to be a good salesperson. So this way that you do communicate, when to talk, when to stop, and how to ask for that contract to be signed. Thank you very much. Appreciate all that you have given us here. A lot of good stuff.
I love you, Scott, and I wish you great health. I know you've had some challenges. I had a few challenges a few weeks ago with the flu. I wish you long-term health. You're doing something great.
Thanks,
and
Joe.
motivating and inspiring others. And I just want you all to know out there, if you ever see me somewhere in life, walk up to me. I'll give you a hug. I'm not tough. And on the trade show floor, the people who walked up to me found out that, oh, he's not that. It was a character that I built.
Yeah. Some people don't like you, and I don't know why.
Yep.
But yeah, I think if they actually meet you, it's like, he's not a bad guy after all.
It's interesting. A lot of the people that didn't like me, for some reason, time does something interesting. Cognitive dissonance. It does something interesting. Because a lot of those people now, they're fascinated. And man, if I went to a Magic Live, which I don't go often, they come out of the woodworks and they know what I did, and they're fascinated, and they find that I'm very down to earth. I mean, Anders and I spent 2.5 hours the last time we convened. I think it was 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning. And I was just giving him more. Like I want to see him. And he's doing great. He's making big money. Yeah. He's got a coach, even a business coach. Like, he's really on top of his game, and he is an exquisite soul. And I wish all of you great success. Magic is a conduit of joy. Yeah. It allows you to, especially when you're an insecure person, fundamentally, it allows you to do something and receive a level of approval that allows you to learn to communicate and connect. Without it, I don't think I'd be where I am. And I don't think my wife would have married me, because I met her at Magic Island when I was performing there.
In Newport Beach?
Yeah, so I wouldn't have my children. I'd probably have something else. And I don't even know if I'd be alive today. I think magic carried me. Steve Jobs used to say, you can't connect the dots until you look back. Everything I've ever done, all the failure, all the success, all the challenges, it all makes sense when you look back. And that's what Jobs was talking about.
Yeah.
And you can't take it with you. The only thing we take with us are our experiences. So have an experience with your audience. Learn to really love that connection, because when you're doing close-up strolling, or you're doing bar mitzvahs or trade shows or hospitality suites, it can become a really repetitive kind of, don't let that happen.
Keep it fresh.
Find the joy in it.
Yeah.
I wish we had more time. Anyway, I love you.
Joe, love you too. Thanks very much. I appreciate it. So for the Magic Word Podcast, that was Joel Bauer. This is Scotty out. Thank you very much, Joel. That was a lot of fascinating stuff, and I enjoyed listening to everything that you had to tell us. And you had anticipated some of the questions I was going to ask, and so you just had plowed right on through. And I appreciate that certainly a lot. And I know the listeners enjoyed that as well. I want to remind everybody again, if you go to themagicwordpodcast.com for this week's episode, you will see the links for some of these things, or all the things that he mentions that he is going to be gifting you guys and gals for listening to this week's episode. And he, again, is someone who is quite approachable. And if you ever have an opportunity to see him when you are at a convention like a Magic Live, even though he's not going to be again presenting, but he will be perhaps appearing from place to place, feel free to stop up by him and say hello, and you heard him on the podcast, and that you can get to know him a little bit more or ask any questions. I'm sure he'll be glad to share that with you at no cost. Anyhow, a lot of really great stuff. So I want to thank again him and thank you. And want to remind everybody, if you have a chance, if you have not yet already gone out and given us a 5-star rating on whatever type of platform that you use, whether it's iTunes or Spotify or however you listen, we would really appreciate that. So this way that we can help this podcast to grow. And then also, if you would just subscribe to the pod letter, whenever you go to the Magic Word Podcast, there should be a pop-up that comes in there, and just subscribe to the pod letter. That way you keep up to date on what's happening from week to week, and you get to hear great episodes like this and get some really good content, not only from the podcast, but also stuff that you can download. So until next week, stay well, get booked, and always remember to be present in the moment. This is Scotty out.